The sky above was broken and full of smoke. A red sun hung low, its light weak. Fading behind the dust of war, every building in the old city was shattered. Walls cracked and blackened by fire. The ground was littered with metal scraps, broken machines, and the silent remains of those who never escaped in the middle of this wasteland. Two alien girls moved quietly through the ruins. They were thin, their skin pale from hunger, and their eyes wide with fear. Their clothes had been torn away days ago when soldiers raided the refugee camp. Now they only had each other, there, bare feet bleeding on sharp stones. The wind was cold and cruel. Carrying the smell of burning metal, the older girl's name was Lyra. Her hair, once silver and bright, was now tangled and dirty. She held the hand of her little sister Naira, who was barely 10 years old. Naira's small face trembled every time the ground shook from faraway explosions. They had been running for days, hiding in shadows, drinking from dirty puddles, just to stay alive. That night, the ruins felt too quiet. No birds, no voices, no machines moving, only the distant echo of something heavy in the air. Lyra stopped, pulling Naira close against a broken wall. She felt it again, a low vibration. Under her feet, something was coming. Naira whispered, "Is it them again?" Her voice was small, almost lost in the wind. Lyra didn't answer. She only tightened her grip on Naira's hand. Her heart beat faster. She remembered the last time they were found. Drones had appeared from the sky, firing beams of light that burned everything they touched. The sound grew louder. It wasn't the sharp whine of alien drones. It was deeper, slower, almost like a human engine. Lyra's mind raced. She had heard stories about humans. Some said they were cruel invaders. Others said they were saviors. She had never seen one herself, and she didn't know which story was true. Through the dust, a shadow appeared, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with careful steps. The figure wore battle armor scratched and dented from many fights. On one arm was a strange glowing device, scanning the ruins with a pale blue light. The light passed over the broken wall where the girls hid. Lyra held her breath. Covering Naira's mouth with her hand, the figure stopped, turning slowly toward them. Naira's eyes filled with tears. Lyra felt her legs shaking. She knew they couldn't run far. The figure stepped closer, the sound of boots crunching over rubble. He stopped only a few steps away. Through the dust, Lyra saw his face, human, pale, tired, with dark eyes that seemed to carry years of war. Instead of raising a weapon, he reached into a pack on his side. He pulled out a folded blanket and laid it gently on the ground in front of them. His voice was calm, deep, and steady. "You're safe now," he said. "If you trust me." Lyra didn't move. Her mind screamed that this could be a trick, but Naira, shivering in the cold, took a small step forward. The man didn't reach for her. He only stayed still, watching them with careful eyes. The distant explosions sounded again. Closer this time, the man's gaze shifted to the horizon. He spoke quickly now. "We don't have much time. They're coming from far away." The night was broken by an echoing metallic roar. The sound of alien war drones hunting. A beam of red light cut across the distant rooftops. The human stepped back and extended his hand. "Come with me, if you want to live," he said. For a heartbeat, Lyra stood frozen. Her mind weighed the danger. Go with the stranger, or stay and face the drones. Naira's small hand squeezed hers tightly. "Please, Lyra," the little one whispered. And in that moment, Lyra made her choice. She grabbed Naira and ran toward the human. The man turned and led them through the ruins, moving fast but silent. The roar of the drones grew louder, beams of red light flashing over the rooftops. Lyra's chest burned as they ran. Naira stumbled once, but the man scooped her up in one arm without slowing. Lyra followed, her legs aching, her lungs screaming for air. They darted into a narrow alley, the walls so close that only one person could pass at a time. A beam struck the building behind them, sending a shower of debris into the air. The man didn't stop until they reached a dark opening in the ground, a tunnel entrance hidden under a slab of broken concrete. He lifted the slab with surprising strength and motioned for them to go inside. Lyra hesitated only for a moment. Before pushing Naira in, then she climbed down herself. Feeling the cold earth under her hands, the man followed, sealing the entrance above them in the darkness. The sound of the drones passed overhead, searching, hunting, but unable to find them. The tunnel was silent, except for their breathing, for the first time in days. Lyra felt a small spark of something she thought was gone. Hope. The tunnel was narrow and smelled of damp earth. A faint blue light glowed from strips fixed along the wall, barely enough to see by. Lyra kept Naira close, her arm wrapped protectively around the little one. The human walked ahead, his armored boots making soft crunching sounds on the dirt floor. He moved like someone who had done this many times before, calm but always alert. Naira's eyes followed the glowing device on his wrist. It pulsed with small lights scanning the space around them. She wanted to ask what it was, but her voice stayed trapped in her throat. The air in the tunnel was heavy, each step feeling like it was taking them deeper into the unknown. Lyra's mind was racing. Who was this man? Why did he help them? She had been told that humans cared only for themselves, that they would take what they wanted and leave the weak to die. Yet this one had risked himself to bring them here. The human finally stopped. He pressed a panel on the wall, and a door slid open with a hiss. Warm light spilled into the tunnel. Inside was a small room, cleaner than anything they had seen in weeks. There was a metal table, 2 chairs, and shelves stacked with boxes on one side. Folded blankets and clothes weighted neatly on the other. Packets of food and bottles of water were lined in rows. Naira's eyes widened. Her small hands shook as she reached for a packet of food. The human nodded. "It's safe," he said. "In?" That deep voice, Lyra stayed back, her eyes never leaving him as Naira began to eat hungrily. She wanted to trust him, but trust was dangerous in a world like this. The man removed his helmet, setting it gently on the table. His hair was dark, streaked with gray. His face was lined with scars, one running from his jaw to his temple. His eyes, dark brown, carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. He looked at them, not like prey, but like people. "I'm Captain Rian Hale," he said. "Human Defense Corps." Lyra didn't answer. Her voice stayed silent. Her body tense. The man sighed, leaning against the wall. "I know you're wondering why I helped," he said. "The truth is, I've been looking for survivors, not just humans. Anyone left after the attacks." Naira looked up from her food. "Why?" she asked softly. Rian's gaze shifted to her. "Because no one should have to face this war alone," he replied, his voice low but steady. The room fell quiet. The only sound the crinkle of food packets in Naira's hands. Lyra studied him carefully. His armor was damaged, but his movements were precise. He had the look of a soldier, someone trained to fight and survive. But there was also something in his voice, something she didn't expect: kindness. Rian moved to one of the shelves and pulled down a bundle of clothing. He set it on the table. "They'll fit you both," he said. Lyra hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. Her fingers brushed the fabric. It was soft, clean, warm. It felt unreal after weeks of cold and dirt. "You should change before we move again," Rian said. "We can't stay here long." Lyra frowned. "Why?" she asked. He looked at her directly. "Because they're still searching. And they won't stop until everything here is gone." Naira's face paled. "Who are they?" she whispered. Rian's eyes hardened. "The Korath Empire," he said. "An alien force that doesn't just conquer, they erase. They burned my world the same way they burned yours." He added, his voice heavy with memory. For the first time, Lyra felt a connection, a thread between them. He was not just another stranger. He was also someone who had lost everything. Still, questions burned in her mind. Why would a human risk his life for us? She asked. Rian's answer was simple. Because you're alive, and that means you matter. A sudden, sharp beep came from his wrist device. His eyes narrowed. "They've found this sector," he said quickly, moving toward the door. The warm light of the shelter suddenly felt smaller, weaker. "We have to go now." Naira's hands trembled as she stuffed the last of her food into her mouth. Lyra grabbed the bundle of clothes and helped her sister put them on as fast as she could. Rian was already checking his rifle, sliding a fresh energy cell into place. He opened the door. The tunnel beyond, now lit by the faint red glow of danger lights. "Stay close to me," he ordered. Lyra took Naira's hand, her heart pounding. Again, they stepped back into the cold tunnel, somewhere above them. Metal engines roared, and the sound of weapons hummed in the distance. Rian glanced back once. "If we're lucky," he said, "we'll make it to the safe zone before they close the net." The air seemed to grow colder as they moved. Every sound in the tunnel felt louder, every drip of water, every shift of stone. Naira looked up at Rian. "Will they find us?" she asked. Rian didn't lie. "They might," he said, "but I won't let them take you." Those words hung in the air. Lyra didn't know if she believed them yet, but she knew one thing. They had no choice but to follow him. The tunnel shook with a distant rumble. Dust drifted from the ceiling, tiny clouds that sparkled in the dim red lights. Rian moved faster now, his rifle-ready eyes fixed on the shadows ahead. Lyra pulled Naira close, forcing her tired legs to keep up. The air felt heavier, as if the entire city above them was pressing down. Then came the sound, a low metallic hum that grew louder with every step. It was the voice of the Korath war drones. Rian stopped, holding up a hand for silence. In the quiet, they could hear the faint click of mechanical legs scraping stone. Naira's breath hitched, and Lyra felt her heart hammering in her chest. "There." In the tunnels, Rian whispered. He switched off his wrist light, plunging them into near darkness. Only the faint red strips along the walls gave them shape and form. "Stay behind me, no matter what," he said. Then he moved again, faster. This time, each step measured and silent. The hum turned into a whine, the sound of energy cores charging. Lyra remembered the beams, the burning light that destroyed everything it touched. She tightened her grip on Naira. The tunnel curved sharply, and as they turned, a cold blue light flashed from behind. The drones had found them. Rian cursed under his breath and broke into a run. "Go, run," he shouted. Lyra and Naira ran, their bare feet slapping against the cold stone. The blue light grew brighter behind them, followed by the sharp crack of weapons firing. A blast struck the wall just above Lyra's head, spraying hot sparks into her hair. Rian spun mid-run, firing his rifle. The sound was deafening in the narrow space. One drone collapsed in a shower of sparks, but two more crawled over its broken body, their legs moving like hungry spiders. "Faster," he barked. They reached a fork in the tunnel. Rian took the left path without hesitation. The air grew colder. The ground sloped downward, and the tunnel widened into a cavern. But there was no time to admire it. The hum of the drones echoed in the chamber like a swarm of insects. Rian fired again, the flash of his rifle lighting up the walls for a split second. "Keep moving," he ordered. Naira tripped over a loose rock and cried out. Without slowing, Rian scooped her into his arms. Her small hands clung to his armor, her eyes wide with fear. Lyra ran beside them, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, the blue light returned closer now, hunting them like predators. They reached a narrow crack in the cavern wall, barely wide enough for one person. Rian shoved Naira through, then motioned for Lyra to follow. She squeezed inside, feeling the rocks scrape her arms. The space beyond was tight. A hidden passage that forced them to crouch. The sound of drones faded slightly, but not enough to mean safety. Rian crawled behind them, pushing a small device into the crack they had come through. A faint green light blinked on it. Then it exploded with a dull thump. Dropping a section of rock into the gap, the drone's hum became muffled. It won't hold them for long. Rian said, "We keep going." The passage sloped upward, the air becoming warmer. A faint glow appeared ahead. Daylight Lyra's heart leaped at the sight of it. They scrambled forward, and soon the crack opened into the outside world. The night sky was gone, replaced by the pale orange of dawn. But the surface was no safer in the distance. Lyra saw black shapes moving through the ruins, scanning with beams of light. Rian pulled them behind the remains of a collapsed building. "They've sealed off the streets." He said, "We need to get to the old transit station. That's where my ship is hidden." Naira looked up at him. "What if they see us?" she asked. "They will," Rian admitted, "but they won't catch us." Before Lyra could ask what he meant, he pulled a small sphere from his belt and pressed a button. The sphere expanded into a shimmering shield of light around them. "It'll hide our heat for a few minutes. Move." They dashed from cover to cover, weaving between broken walls and twisted metal. Distant weapons fire echoed, the sound bouncing off the empty streets. The drones were relentless, their beams slicing. Through the air behind them, the shield flickered each time a blast came close. Naira stumbled, but Lyra caught her and pulled her along. Refusing to slow, finally, the cracked stone steps of the old transit station came into view. It was half buried under debris, its sign broken and unreadable. Rian led them down the stairs. Into darkness again, the hum of the drones grew faint, replaced by the creak of old metal and the dripping of water. For a moment, it felt like they had escaped. But then a sound echoed from deep inside the station, not the drones, but something heavier. Rian froze, his rifle up. "That's not them," he said quietly. Lyra's stomach tightened. If it wasn't the drones, then what else could be waiting for them in the dark? The steps creaked under their weight as they descended deeper into the old transit station. The air smelled of rust and stale water. Broken lights hung from the ceiling, swinging slightly in the draft. Somewhere in the dark, a single drop of water kept falling into a puddle, the sound echoing like a slow clock. Rian moved first, his rifle ready. Lyra kept Naira close, her hand firmly holding the little girl's trembling fingers. Every step forward felt heavier above them. Faint echoes of drones still searching on the surface reminded them that danger was never far. The heavy sound they heard earlier came again, a low groan of metal. Rian froze, raising his fist to signal silence. They waited in stillness. The sound did not repeat. He motioned for them to follow, moving toward a side passage on the left. The narrow hallway led to a locked door. Rian knelt and pressed a small tool against the control panel. A spark, a click, and the door slid open slowly. Warm air poured out, carrying the scent of cooked food for a moment. Lyra thought she was imagining it. Inside was a small underground shelter. Its walls were reinforced with steel plates. A generator hummed softly in the corner. Tables were set with supplies, canned food, water bottles, folded blankets. A single heater glowed in the center, spreading gentle warmth across the room. Nira's eyes lit up. She stepped inside and reached out toward the warmth. Lyra followed, though her eyes never left Rian. She still didn't understand why he was doing this. She had learned long ago that help often came with a price. Rian closed the door behind them and locked it. "We can rest here for a few hours," he said. Setting his rifle against the wall, Naira sat cross-legged near the heater, smiling for the first time in days. Lyra lowered herself onto a chair, her body aching with exhaustion, but her mind refused to relax. Rian moved to a shelf and took out a packet of food. He placed it in front of Naira. "It's not much, but it's better than nothing," he said. Naira tore it open quickly, the smell making her stomach growl. She began to eat, her hands moving fast, afraid the food might disappear. Lyra watched silently. Her eyes studied Rian as he removed his gloves, revealing hands covered in small burns and scars. Those were not the hands of someone who lived in comfort. They were the hands of someone who fought, worked, and bled for survival. Finally, Lyra spoke. "Why?" she asked simply. Rian glanced at her. "Why? What? Why help us?" She repeated, "You could have left us in the ruins." Rian's expression didn't change. "I told you before," he said. "No one should have to face this war alone." He paused, his voice quieter now. "And because I know what it's like to lose everything," Lyra didn't reply right away. But she couldn't look away from his face. The tired eyes, the deep lines. This man had seen more than his share of loss. He wasn't just another soldier. He was someone carrying his own ghosts. Naira finished eating and leaned against the heater. Her eyes were half closed. Rian pulled a blanket from the shelf and draped it over her. She mumbled a soft thank you before drifting into sleep. Lyra's chest tightened at the sight. It had been so long since Naira had been able to rest like this. "You should rest too," Rian said. Lyra shook her head. "I can't," she replied. "You don't trust me." He said. "I don't trust anyone," she answered. He gave a small nod, as if he understood completely. "Then stay awake," he said. "But know this, when we move again, you'll need all your strength." The heater's soft hum filled the silence. For a moment, the world outside felt far away, but Lyra knew it was only an illusion. She glanced at the locked door, somewhere beyond it. The Korath were still hunting. Rian sat across from her, his back against the wall. He began to clean his rifle, moving with the slow precision of someone who had done it 1,000 times. Lyra found herself watching, noticing the way his hands never shook. There was control in every motion, control she wished she had. After a while, Rian spoke again. "We'll leave before sunrise," he said. "The drones are less active then." "Where will we go?" Lyra asked. "There's a human colony not far from here. Underground, safe," he answered. "They'll take you in." Lyra frowned. "And you?" She asked. "I have to keep moving," he said simply. "There are others out there, survivors like you, and they need someone to find them." She didn't know why, but his words stirred something in her. A small part of her wanted to believe him. Another part still feared the moment he might turn on them. For now, she decided, it didn't matter. What mattered was getting Naira to safety. Naira shifted in her sleep, a faint smile on her lips. Lyra pulled the blanket tighter around her sister. Then she looked at Rian again. For the first time, she allowed herself to think, maybe, just maybe, this human wasn't like the others she had been told about. But outside the shelter, in the ruins above, a faint mechanical hum began to grow again, and Lyra knew their rest would not last long. The faint hum above faded, leaving only the low whisper of the heater in the shelter. Lyra sat across from Rian, her eyes fixed on him. She had questions that refused to stay silent any longer. Questions that had been burning inside her since the moment he appeared in the ruins. Rian was checking the seals on his armor when she finally spoke. "You said the Korath burned your home," she began. He looked up slowly, his expression unreadable. "Yes," he replied, "they didn't just burn it. They erased it." Lyra tilted her head slightly. "What do you mean?" she asked. Rian's voice dropped lower, heavier. "They have a way of making worlds disappear," he said. "They strip them of everything, people, animals, plants, cities, until there's nothing but empty rock left." Naira, still wrapped in the blanket, stirred at the sound of his voice. Her eyes opened, sleepy but curious. Why? She asked softly. Rian sighed, looking at the small girl. Because they believe only their kind should exist, he said. Anything that's different, they destroy. The heater's soft hum filled the silence. Lyra felt her stomach twist. Her people had been told many things about the Korath, that they were conquerors, that they were cruel, but hearing it from someone who had seen it himself made it feel sharper. More real. They came to my planet when I was young. Rian continued. At first, we thought we could fight them, but their weapons. They were faster, smarter, and they never stopped coming. He paused, his gaze distant. I watched my city fall in a single day, he said. My family was gone before I even understood what was happening. Naira hugged the blanket closer. Her small face pale. Lyra's hands tightened in her lap. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Okay. Rian shook his head. Don't be, he replied. That's why I'm here now, to make sure what happened to me doesn't happen to others. Not if I can stop it. He leaned back against the wall. When I joined the Human Defense Corps, they sent me to help worlds under attack, he explained. But the truth is, there aren't enough of us. He tapped the side of his armor. We're always outnumbered, always outgunned, but we keep going, because someone has to. Lyra studied him carefully. You saved us, she said slowly. But you didn't even know our names. Rian gave a small, almost tired smile. I didn't need to know them, he said. You were alive, and that was enough. For a long moment, no one spoke. Naira's eyes stayed on him. She had grown up hearing that humans were selfish, dangerous, untrustworthy. But this man, this soldier didn't fit that picture. He wasn't here for reward or glory. He was here because he refused to walk away outside. A faint echo of metal shifting above the ruins reminded them that the world beyond was still dangerous. Rian noticed Lyra's glance toward the door. They'll come here, he said. Not tonight, maybe, but soon. That's why we need to move before sunrise. Lyra frowned. You're taking us to a human colony, she said. More a statement than a question. Yes, Rian confirmed. They're hidden deep underground. With shields strong enough to block Korath scans, there's food. Water, medicine, you'll be safe there. Nira's eyes lit up at the word safe. Lyra's expression stayed guarded. And then what? She asked. Rian's voice was firm. Then I leave. There are other survivors who need me. Nira leaned forward slightly. But why don't you stay? She asked. Because if I stop, more people will die, Rian answered. His tone was calm. But there was a weight in it. The weight of someone who had made this choice many times before. Lyra thought about his words. She didn't trust easily, not after everything she had seen, but there was something in Rian's voice that felt unshakable. It wasn't the voice of someone lying. It was the voice of someone who had already given up more than he could. Count. Finally, she spoke again. If we go with you, you promise Naira will be safe. She asked. Rian didn't hesitate. I promise, he said simply. The way he said it made her believe, even if she didn't want to. Nira yawned and leaned against her sister. Lyra pulled the blanket around both of them. Rian stood and began to pack his gear, checking each weapon and tool carefully. We move in 2 hours, he said. Rest while you can. Lyra leaned her head back against the wall. Her eyes stayed open, watching Rian as he worked. She still didn't know if she could trust him fully, but deep down, a quiet voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. Outside, somewhere far above, the Korath drones moved through the ruins. Their search patterns were slow but steady, and in the shelter. The clock toward sunrise was already ticking. Asterisk, the heater's soft hum was the only sound in the shelter. Rian had finished packing his gear. Every movement deliberate. Lyra sat with Naira wrapped in the blanket, watching him from across the room. Her mind felt like a storm. Fear? Doubt? and the smallest spark of hope clashing inside her. Finally, Rian straightened and looked at them. "It's time to decide," he said. Lyra frowned. "Decide what?" She asked. "Whether you come with me," Rian answered, "or stay here and face the Korath alone." Nira's eyes widened. "Stay here," she repeated, almost in disbelief. Rian nodded slowly. "This place won't be safe much longer," he said. "Their scans are getting stronger every day." Lyra's gaze dropped to the floor. She didn't like being forced into a choice, but deep down, she knew he was right. She had seen what happened to those who stayed too long in one place. The Korath found them, and then there was nothing. Left Rian stepped closer. "There's a colony not far from here," he said. "Hidden deep underground, you'll have food, water, and shelter." Nira shifted in her blanket. "Will there be other kids?" she asked. A faint smile touched Rian's lips. "Yes," he said, "and schools. And safe places to play." For a moment, Nira's face lit up, but Lyra's expression stayed guarded. "And after you take us there?" she asked. "I leave," Rian replied, his voice steady. "There are more people out there who need help. I can't stay in one place." Nira's smile faded. "Then you'll be gone," she whispered. Rian crouched so his eyes were level. "With hers, I'll be gone from the colony," he said. "But I'll still be out there making sure the Korath can't hurt you again." Nira studied his face for a long moment. Her small voice carried a question that felt heavier than Nira. It sounded, "Do you promise?" Rian didn't look away. "I promise," he said, his tone unshakable. Lyra felt something shift inside her. It was dangerous to believe in promises. She had heard too many broken ones before, but there was something in his voice, the kind of certainty that could only come from someone who had already lost everything and refused to lose more. A faint rumble shook the floor beneath them. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. Ryan's eyes narrowed. "They're closer than I thought," he said, moving toward the door. "We have to leave now." Nira quickly stood. Wrapping the blanket around herself like armor, Lyra grabbed her hand and rose to her feet. Rian unlocked the door and peered into the tunnel beyond. The air outside was colder, the red warning lights flickering weakly. They moved quickly through the narrow passage. Rian kept scanning the walls with his wrist device, the faint green lines shifting with each movement. Lyra stayed close behind, pulling Nira along. The silence of the tunnels made every small sound feel louder, every step, every breath. After a few minutes, Rian slowed and motioned for them to stop. He crouched near an old maintenance panel. Pulling it open with a quiet creak, inside was a bundle wrapped in cloth. He unrolled it to reveal a small case of bright silver discs. "What are those?" Lyra asked. "Signal blockers," Rian said. "They'll buy us a little time if the Korath pick up our trail." He handed one to Lyra. "Press the center if you hear the drones," he instructed. "It won't last long, but it might give us a chance to hide." They moved on, the tunnels winding upward toward the surface. Nira's breathing grew faster as the air became fresher. "We're almost there," Rian said. But Lyra could hear the tension in his voice. Almost there didn't mean safe. Finally, a faint orange glow appeared ahead, the first light of dawn breaking through a cracked service hatch. Rian stopped just before it and turned to face them. "This is the last stretch," he said. "Once we're outside, we'll move fast. No stopping, no noise, no hesitation." Nira nodded, her small hands gripping Lyra's tightly. Lyra gave a single sharp nod in return. Rian pushed the hatch open slowly, the cold morning air spilling into the tunnel. The city above was quiet. Too quiet. They emerged into the ruins. The broken skyline stood against the pale sky, somewhere far off. The faint hum of drones drifted in the wind. Rian motioned for them to follow. They began to weave through collapsed buildings and twisted streets. Every step forward felt heavier. The silence was not safety. It was the kind of silence that came before something broke. Rian kept glancing upward, scanning the rooftops and skies. Naira whispered, "Are they here?" "Not yet," he answered, "but they will be." Lyra's heart pounded as they moved toward the outer edge of the city. She could almost see it in the distance. A jagged ridge of hills. Somewhere beyond those hills was the colony. Somewhere. Beyond those hills was safety. But before they could reach it, a low, mechanical roar echoed through the air. Rian stopped, his body tensing from behind a ruined tower. A dark shadow began to rise. It wasn't just one drone. It was an entire patrol, and they were already facing them. The roar of the patrol filled the air. Metal legs scraped against stone. And the hum of charging weapons vibrated through the ground. Rian's hand shot up in a silent signal for Lyra and Naira to stop. The morning light caught the drone's sleek black armor as they moved in formation. Their red sensors sweeping the ruins like hunting eyes. "Stay low," Rian whispered. Lyra pulled Naira into the shadow of a half-collapsed wall. The drones scanned slowly, their beams cutting through dust and debris. Rian's fingers tapped his wrist device, a faint green shimmer flashing across his armor as his shield activated. But a shield was only a delay, not protection. "They've locked on," Rian muttered. A sudden burst of blue energy exploded against the wall above them, showering sparks. "Run!" he barked, grabbing Naira's hand and pulling her forward. They darted between broken buildings. The ground shook with the weight of the drones following close behind. Each shot fired left a scorch mark on the ground where they had just been. Lyra's lungs burned, her legs screamed in protest. But the sight of the ridge ahead pushed her forward. Beyond that ridge, Rian's ship waited. If they could reach it, they had a chance. If not, Lyra didn't want to think about what would happen. A blast hit just to their right, sending a wall of heat into their faces. Naira stumbled, but Rian swung her into his arms without slowing. Lyra tried to keep pace, her eyes flicking back to see the drones closing the distance. There were 6 of them now, their movements fast, relentless. Rian skidded to a stop at a narrow alley, blocked by a collapsed transport vehicle. "This way," he shouted, turning sharply. They ran into a side street lined with shattered market stalls. The drones split into 2 groups, some cutting them off ahead, others closing in from behind. "We're boxed in," Lyra gasped. "Not yet," Rian said, pulling a small cylinder from his belt. He twisted the top, and a thick cloud of white smoke burst out, filling the street. "Stay close," he ordered. The smoke stung Lyra's eyes, but it covered their movements. They burst out of the smoke into open ground, and there it was, Rian's ship, hidden between 2 jagged rock outcroppings. It was small, sleek, with a dull silver hull, and faint blue lights along its sides. The rear hatch was already open, waiting. "Go," Rian shouted. Lyra grabbed Naira's arm and ran for the ship. But before they could reach it, a shadow passed over them. The sunlight dimmed, replaced by the dark shape of something massive above. Lyra looked up, her breath caught an alien warship hung in the sky, its hull black and jagged like a predator's teeth. It was at least 10 times the size of Rian's craft. Rows of glowing weapons lined its underside. "Already powering up, they found us," Rian said, his voice low but urgent. A beam of red light swept over the ground, locking onto their position inside. "Now," he ordered, shoving Lyra and Naira toward the ship. They scrambled up the ramp. Rian followed, hitting the control to seal the hatch. The hum of the ship's engines roared to life, but outside, the warship's weapons were already charging, the air crackling with heat. "Strap in," Rian shouted, sliding into the pilot's seat. Lyra pulled Naira into a crash harness. Her hands shaking, through the front viewport, she could see the massive ship turning toward them. Its weapons locking on, the air shimmered with the buildup of deadly energy. Rian's fingers flew over the controls. Come on, he muttered. The ship lifted off the ground, dust swirling beneath them. A deep alarm sounded. The warship was seconds from firing. Naira's eyes were wide. Her voice small. Are we going to make it? She asked. Yes, Rian said, though his tone carried the weight of uncertainty. Lyra gripped the harness tight, her eyes locked on the glowing weapons aimed at them. The first blast fired a beam of searing red light that lit up the sky. Rian yanked the controls, the ship rolling hard to the left. The beam missed by a fraction, striking the ground in an explosion of molten rock. Heat washed over the hull, alarms blaring. More beams followed, cutting through the air. Rian pushed the engines to full power, the ship surging forward toward the ridge. Hold on, he shouted. The hull rattled, the controls groaned, and the air inside the cockpit felt like it might crack with tension. Another blast streaked past, close enough to burn the outer plating. The ridge was just ahead. If they could get over it, Rian could engage the jump drive. If they didn't, the warship would tear them apart. The sky flashed again, another beam coming straight for them. Naira screamed. Lyra pulled her close. Rian's jaw tightened, his eyes locked on the ridge. The beam grew brighter, closer, faster, and then the screen went white. The sound of the warship faded into silence. When the light cleared, the ship was somewhere else entirely. Stars stretched out around them. The ridge, the ruins, the drones, all gone. But before relief could set in, Rian's console began to flash red. Something had followed them through the jump, and it was already inside the ship.